everyone. Greetings, everybody. Greetings. This is Brother Nia from NABSS TV, doing a interview with a supplementary school based in Leeds, and we'll be talking about what's happening up in Leeds and how this school got started. So please introduce yourselves and your roles in the school.
Right. Hi, my name is Marina Active. I am the founder and director of Ujima. Ujima started in 2016. So that's where it started. So
yeah.
Jonah?
I'm Jonah Ulebo. I am the project lead at Ujima, and I'm working on the project as part of my research with Leeds Beckett University, looking at why just sort of the reasons why there's the attainment gap with Black children, and how we can use a social action project like Ujima to make a difference in the outcomes for Black children. Thank you.
Lisa?
Yep. Hi, I'm Nisa Hussain. I'm a volunteer coordinator at Ujima. I joined Ujima rather recently, actually. But yeah, that's sort of what I do, and I also tutor. So yeah.
Good to know. Good to know. I'm always having people asking for private tutors, so it's good to know. Okay, so you said you started in 2016?
Yeah.
So what was the reason for starting the Ujima Supplementary School?
I think one of the reasons for starting Ujima, I think it's in 2016, myself and another primary school teacher who, we were working with a project called CFYDC, which is Chapeltown Youth Development Center, and it's mostly sports related. And we were volunteers then, and a lot of the children we came across, a lot of the Black parents and Black children we came about were always having an issue around how their children were doing in primary school, in high school, their fear of actually approaching parents' evening, what was wrong with their children, and the fact that some of their children were always having issues within school. And so we kind of like that came about, and after speaking, to several parents about it and what did they want to do about it, and they were saying things like, I've tried working with the school, I've done this, it's not working, I'm constantly being called at work, I would just want some help in how I can get, my child from A to B basically, and how to help them, with their academics. So that is probably one of the first reasons as to why Ujima started. And we started off with 4 children basically, and those were the children that parents had huge concerns about. One of them was in year 7, but was operating at a year 5 primary school age. And after spending sort of like 3 sessions with this young woman, we realized that she was actually a high flyer. But what the system said was that she was of African background, and so English wasn't her first language, and so therefore they just automatically place her in the not able kind of category. And so if she was in year 7, she was at the bottom set of year 7, but things like number bonds and basic things that she should have known weren't. It's like they just kind of like slopped her over. And so, her parents were really concerned about her being in year 7 and really not achieving. So her and her siblings spent, after about 3 or 4 sessions with us, we realized this child was actually quite intelligent and very bright, and she should not have been in that set. So we kind of like, right, we started off with 4 children, and then it just kind of like, we didn't do any advertisement, and we just got children coming to us, and suddenly we found ourselves in a position where we needed to do a little bit more than just work with these 4 children. And we started off a center called the Mandela Center in Chapeltown. We started off in one room with 2 bulky desks, lots of children. And they were just coming, and there was just myself and Adele. My background's not teaching, Adele's it was. And right in the early stage, even though Jonah's now with us, we had 4 children from who were doing GCSE and who were struggling with maths. And I knew Jonah from before, and I called him, and he says, right, I'll come down. And Jonah just came in and just threw himself in right at the beginning, 2016, without, even though he was a teacher with a full schedule on, with a family, he volunteered, and he came, and the help that he gave those children really made a difference, and we kind of like went from there to realizing that, we need more help than we've got. We've got more children than we've got help. How do we cope? Didn't realize there was a need as much as that. And then we did some research. Adele had a couple of contacts at the university. And we went to university, spoke to them and said, look, we need some volunteers. We need some help. What can you do? Can you work with us? Fortunately for us, there was a Professor Damien, who was the head of the education department within Leeds Becker University, took a huge interest in what we were doing, came down, and at that time we had expanded into another room, and the room that we were in, the carpet was horrible. We didn't have chairs, didn't have anything. He came down, took a look, sat down with one of the young person who was there, and she was telling him what she wanted to do, and she wanted to be a pediatrician and all the rest. And he says, right, what do you think would make a difference? She told him. A couple of days later, he came back, he called and says, right, you need new desks, you need chairs, you need this, you need that. And we kind of like, we got our rooms furnished, we got chairs, we've got everything. And he has been a strong supporter, encouraging teachers, from third-year teachers, second-year teachers from Becker University to volunteer with Ujima. We've also had local teachers from the Chapeltown area, who've come in and help us. And, that is where the offset for Ujima really started. And as we were doing that, one of the things we realized is that, there was such a need for it, because a lot of the children we work with were considered troubled children or had issues. And one of the things I realized with all of this was this: I was 45 when I was diagnosed with dyslexia, and that's when I went to uni. I went to university to do my social work degree, and that's when but I was always told, you could never achieve anything, and I think my passion for Ujima is to ensure that, how I felt. I did admit until 5 years later that I actually talked about the fact that I am dyslexic. I'm a talker, as you will see. I can talk for England.
Really?
But I hate kind of like writing anything down. And one of the things that we find within Ujima is that some of our children are very bright. And because you're bright, you can be creative and not be academic. And I think when Joan and Nisa comes in is that they are the academics. So, they do that. They can pull all the other bits from the children. So, that is where Ujima started, and that's the foundation of Ujima.
Okay, what's the professor's name again, the professor?
Professor Damien Page.
Okay, and how did you manage to get the desks and the equipment? How was that paid for? Or was it?
That was through some really. He asked what we needed, and we said what we felt we needed to actually make. We needed that. He says in here, doesn't look very nice. It's not a very nice learning environment. What would you need? We told him what we would need, and he went away and he made it happen, basically.
Excellent, brilliant, excellent. Jonah, how did you get involved?
Okay, so Professor Damien Page, by the way, is the Dean of the School of Education at Leeds Beckett University, because I know there are lots of schools in university. And I think for me, what Leeds Beckett University is doing with Ujima Project is really unique, because it's one thing to talk about disadvantage for Black children and all that stuff, and you hear all the headline news about how Black children are not achieving. But for a university to actually take the step forward and really want to partner with an organization that Sitware is a really small organization within Chapeltown community. For me, it's one of the things that I'm happy and proud of. So the way I got involved was the fact that Leeds Beckett University has a studentship which is named after Gertrude Paul. Gertrude was the first black head teacher, actually the first black teacher and head teacher in Leeds. And Gertrude was known to stand up for the community and to want to make a difference for black children, obviously herself being black. So you can imagine way back in the late 80s and 90s, it was a completely different ball game to then have someone who was not just black but a woman being a head teacher was a really big deal. So Leeds Beckett instituted this studentship, which meant that I could work on doing a PhD looking at the issues around black ethnic minority attainment gap, but also then working with Marina, because Marina has started something which many people have just talked about. You know, she's actually decided to do something and make a difference. So it was a dream come true working with Marina to try and see how we could really do something that will make a difference. My background, I know Marina talked about me being an academic. I wouldn't call myself academic in any sense. I'm just a maths teacher who have been in schools, saw the fact that students were not achieving as they could. So despite what the Sewell report talks about, there's no institutional racism anymore in the UK. Someone like myself has lived through it. I've gone to schools and seen that in schools, when you look at maths and core subjects, you go to the bottom set groups. Who's there? It's huge proportion of black children. Why is that happening still in 2021? It's simply because there's something wrong about the system that means children from a particular race are not achieving as well as they can achieve. So you can write 20 reports about how the UK has come out of institutional racism. If that is not showing in the outcomes for children, then I'm afraid something is still wrong somewhere, and someone needs to own up to that. So you can see also,
we should have been in the position to write our own reports and put forward our own leaders. And if we, and while we continue to not do that and not organize on a national level, other people will do it on our behalf. So it's down to us as a nation of African heritage people to come together nationally and do things together. And until that happens, other people will write reports on our behalf. Nisa, how did you get involved with the Ujima Project?
So I'm a student at Leeds Beckett University, and I got sort of introduced by, Jonah mentioned Gertrude Paul. Her daughter is actually a professor at Leeds Beckett University. She was my professor, and she introduced Ujima to me as an opportunity for like placement and stuff.
Okay.
So I signed up, and then when I did, I volunteered for some probably like a month or so before I thought, you know what, I can't volunteer no more because I needed to like have some income because of, student life and things. And but then Jonah and Marina did something amazing, and they managed to sort of keep me on a funded basis, essentially.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so I was, I'm very lucky to be where I am, really. But yeah, that's how I came across Ujima and signed up.
Yeah, I mean, to get, for a student to be giving up their spare time to come into a supplementary school is, it's highly commendable. So I praise all the students who come back and help out in mainstream schools across the country. It is highly commendable. So what's the current situation with the school? 2021 we've been during lockdown. Were you open during the lockdown, or were you online?
We're currently working online. So since I got involved in the project sort of around August last year, For obvious reasons of the pandemic, we have not been able to open up. Again, we use the Mandela Center, which obviously is a council controlled building, and with all the restrictions on what we can do during this time, it's been difficult to have to be able to open face to face. So all our tuition is going on online now.
Okay, that's good. That's good. And then obviously, when lockdown's over, you'll be able to do face to face again. That's good.
Can't wait.
So when lockdown's over and you're able to do face to face, will you continue to do the online as well?
Yes, we will. We are still thinking about it. It's possible that there will be students who think they can still come into the center. We've made up our minds that we don't want anything to stop us from being able to support the young people that we have. We will look into it, but I guess that most people, because they probably live locally to Chapel Town, will be able to come in house, and it does help us to have a level of interaction that we want to have to make it work as best as possible. But I suspect that we'll also be looking at the possibility of still staying online.
Okay, that sounds good. That sounds very good. And that actually, during lockdown, being able to go online has been one of the benefits of African heritage supplementary schools around the country. It's actually, a lot of schools have actually benefited from it, so it's a good way. But face to face is still required as well. So if schools can do both, then brilliant. So in setting up the school and the continued running of the school, what are the low points to start off with, and what are the high points that you've come across?
I would say, I think Nisa, any of you can contribute into this. I would say one of the key things is it's more challenging to obviously manage volunteers when it's all online, because don't forget, most of our volunteers, and again, that's as a result of the partnership we have with the university. Most of the volunteers are students of Leeds Beckett University, and so it can be a struggle to manage a number of volunteers all working virtually. Some of them have just only recently known about the project, so I think that's one of the key things. Communication also is an issue, because parents are, again, it's not physical. We have to make phone calls, make sure children are attending the sessions. But I think one other big deal is IT. As much as it sounds easy, there's the assumption that every child, for example, in a home has a laptop, and it's sad that that's not the picture. And just getting kids to be able to have the right equipment. And initially, we find most students were accessing the lessons using a phone, and there's a limit to what you can show or display when you're trying to teach maths or English or subjects using just the phone. So one of the things we're looking now into is how to make sure that we have laptops available. I hear that there are some 10,000 laptops somewhere. If you've seen where they are near, you can tell me, because I'm willing to get a couple of them just to make sure I can support the children that I need to support. But those are the real low points, because you think that in this 21st century United Kingdom, that it will be taken for granted that children have access to the IT and equipment that they need, but sadly it's not the case.
Yeah, there is help available. You just need to find out where that help is. But I can put you in touch with organisations that will give free laptops. Even your university might be able to help. But the local authorities, even the schools, have made an effort to make sure that all their students have a laptop. So there is help out there. So what are the high points in running this school?
The impact on children is just something that brings joy to me. After one session, I remember a child sent a voice message to Marina, actually, and she forwarded that message to me. I was just like, I've just had this math session. Thank you so much for letting me do this. I learned so much in 1 hour than I've learned all week in school. That's actually what this young lad said. I don't know if there's some embellishment there, but you get a feeling that children just absolutely love it when they know they are being taught by someone who cares and want to make a difference. So just to see the impact is made, it's amazing. We have a partnership I would like to mention with Flourish Minds, which is a company run by an amazing lady, Karen Cruz. And what Flourish Mind does is a bit of coaching with our young children. And Flourish Mind has got funding that helps us provide coaching for the children at Ujima, and to see the impact that also are being able to talk to the children and give them that confidence that they require to say, you can do this, you are not what people might say you are, you certainly can make progress. That's something we are able to offer in addition to the maths and English lessons, which I think is making amazing difference for the young people we work with. So that's really some of the key eye points, but the main one is to see the difference we're making and how the children really love what we're doing with them.
Beautiful, beautiful. And what kind of feedback are you getting from parents?
Marina, do you want to? Yeah.
From parents, what we're getting a lot of positive feedback from parents. A lot of parents are saying, like Jonah mentioned, Karen Cruz, who is part of Flourish Mind, who works with young people, and she does a lot of coaching with them. But she also, one of the wonderful things she does is that she coaches the parents as well. So she works with the child, but she also works alongside the parent. And one of the positive things that has come out is the parents have said, how different a child is, not just with at home, but the confidence that they're building within themselves, how they feel about themselves, and the level that where they're taking themselves to. So where you thought a child, how a parent would speak to that child, and how that child would respond. One of the things that the coaching is doing is saying to the parents, this is how probably you should react to that, and that makes a difference. But what that also does is, when a child answers a question in a classroom and the teacher makes the child feel like you're worthless, that child doesn't feel like that anymore, because they know within themselves, well, wait a minute, and it's about how you challenge things, not in an aggressive way, but in a very productive way, and in a very confident way. And that makes a huge difference, in terms of how that child is. But that also filters through families and friends and home, and that will actually change the whole concept of how that child presents themselves. And also for the parents seeing that difference in the child, it also helps you to say, right, okay, right, let's do this differently, let's try this differently, and one of the things that it's parents and communication, and a lot of parents don't communicate with anybody who's a teacher, because their experience at school with teachers and the whole education system wasn't very good.
Yeah.
And one parent who I spoke to the other day said to me, I want to ask questions, but I feel stupid. And I says, why? She says, because that's why I don't go to parents' evening, and that's why I don't do this, because I was never. And so for me, that was quite a ooh. So it's kind of, it feels like kind of like we are just not making changes with the children, not just in the academics, their maths and English, and in their confidence, but we're also changing the mindset of the parent, to look at things differently. Because if you don't go to parents' evening, you don't know how your child's doing.
Absolutely.
Whereas they feel comfortable, talking to us or talking to Joan and Nisa, but that is something that's had to be built up on that with them.
Absolutely.
So it's very much about positive. It's about making the parents feel comfortable within who they are.
Yeah. So what kind of interaction do you have with mainstream schools in the area?
Sorry, could you just repeat that? I just had mainstream school.
What kind of interaction does the Ujima Project have with mainstream schools in the Leeds area? So the schools the children go to, what kind of interaction do you have with their schools?
We have not had much interaction with a lot of the mainstream schools. One of the things when Jonah came on board was that's one of the things that we were going to actually look into more, but unfortunately COVID hit, and so we've not had chance. Schools have been closed, so we've not had that chance to do a lot of that as we would like to. I think Jonah has a plan of what he wants to do once schools are open and we can do face to face. but as of yet, we've not had that chance to actually go into main schools.
Okay.
And pre that, you know, Ujima was just concentrating on the children that we had rather than looking at schools.
Sure. And my final question is, what is your outlook for the future for the Ujima project?
I can speak a bit into that. I'm hoping that the partnership with Leeds Beckett University definitely continues, especially the School of Education. I am also hoping that this can be seen as a model of what works and what can be actually rolled out in many more cities across the country, because it's having that real financial investment, because obviously the university is investing in me being on the Ujima project and also investing on my PhD program. And I think that real financial investment and absolute interest in projects like this will make a big difference. I think Ujima has a massive potential for growth, even within the context of what we do now, but also across the city of Leeds. Can we duplicate what we're doing in Chapeltown, for example, in other communities around Leeds? You know, that we have children who are feeling that effect of not being cared for in mainstream schools. So I think it's just hoping that this is a model for real change. Nisa, do you want to talk also about the volunteers and how that could work in the future?
Yeah, I think like Jonah says, I envision growth as well with Ujima. So in terms of volunteers, that would mean bringing a lot more on board, a lot more sort of a lot more volunteers on board essentially. And yeah, just a growth of the organization is what we're both envisioning, and what we definitely see happening, because like Jonah says, there's massive potential in Ujima. It's needed, it's definitely needed in so many communities. And you know, that growth is what we're just working towards each and every day, really.
Yeah.
And when I first set up NABSS like 14 years ago, I had two supplementary schools in Leeds. One was called Yes Cyber, and I can't remember the other one. Well, one of them was run
I've
by...
heard about Yes Cyber. I didn't know that was you.
No, it wasn't run by me.
Okay.
I had them on my directory. It was run
All
by
right.
Urban Mohammed.
Yeah, Urban is actually, he is one of our face-to-face volunteers at Ujima, but obviously he's not actually teaching online, but he's hoping when we go back to face-to-face to come and work with us. Yeah.
Yeah, so there was a big gap between those two supplementary, because they were both in Chapeltown. So there was a big gap between those closing down and then the Ujima projects coming up. So I'm glad there's something in Leeds, because I'm getting people asking, is there a Saturday school in Leeds? And I had to, sadly say no, but now I can happily say, yes, there is. The Ujima project is up and running in Leeds. So Marina, Jonah and Nisa, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your energy and for what you're doing for the community in Leeds and for the UK African heritage community throughout. So thank you very much for your time, and I wish you all great success.
Thanks so much.